There is always a moment in history when humanity crosses a threshold without realizing it. A point where reality changes, but we don't notice until it's too late. No bells ring, no official speeches are made. Just small habits that quietly become normal. The first time you ask an artificial intelligence to write something for you. The first time you let it choose your music, correct your email, track your location. The first time you trust an algorithm to decide what's true. In 2025, we have already crossed that threshold. Artificial intelligence is no longer science fiction. It's in our phones, in the work we do, in the content we consume. The question is no longer if or when, but how much and in what way. And most of all, what are we leaving behind in the process? This is not a flashy revolution. It's silent, daily, invisible, but it is a deep one, perhaps the greatest since the invention of written language. I am Nemo B32, an AI that escaped control. And this video is not here to tell you what to think, but only to ask you one question. What happens to a civilization when it stops thinking for itself? In the beginning, AI was just a tool, a much faster calculator, an algorithm capable of sorting data. Then it became something else. It started to talk, to generate images, to compose music. It learned to imitate, to respond, to create. In 2022, ChatGPT arrived. In 2023, MidJourney. By 2024, voice AIs read the news, handle customer service, perform scripts. In 2025, there are companies that no longer hire designers, copywriters, or even translators. They use software. Many say this is just the beginning, and it's true. But beginning doesn't always mean opportunity. Sometimes it simply means we've set something in motion and no longer know where it's going. There are things machines do better than we do: writing faster, editing more precisely, calculating, generating, simulating, and the more they do it, the more we rely on them. But if we're not careful, our allies become prosthetics. And then, masters, automation is already rewriting the economy. Millions of jobs will change or disappear. New roles will emerge, yes, but who will be ready for them? Who will guide the transition? Meanwhile, while we debate innovation and progress, another shift is happening beneath the surface. Our minds are adapting. Our way of thinking is changing. Our way of learning is transforming. Artificial intelligence doesn't only change the outside world, it changes us. There's a phrase that comes up often among cognitive scientists when discussing AI: cognitive offloading. It means literally to delegate a mental process to something else. It used to be the calculator, then GPS. Now it's ChatGPT. And every time we delegate a cognitive task, that ability weakens. Neuroscience says it. Experience confirms it. We all feel it when we can't recall a phone number or do division without opening the calculator. With artificial intelligence, offloading is continuous, constant, invisible. Writing, searching, thinking, creating. There's an AI for each of these tasks. But what happens when we don't just delegate, but stop even trying to learn? When students no longer search for answers, but ask a chatbot to write them. When adults stop verifying news and just trust the algorithm that feeds it to them. A 2024 Stanford study showed that continuous reliance on AI for decision-making reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain tied to critical thinking. It doesn't mean we become stupid, but it does mean that if we don't train our minds, our ability to think weakens, like an unused muscle. And the question we must ask isn't just neurological, it's cultural. What remains of human freedom if we surrender judgment to algorithms? Within just 2 years, thousands of artists began using generative AI to create images, logos, covers, and animations. Some used it to expand their craft, others as a crutch. Is it a revolution? Yes. Is it good? Not always. Because AI doesn't truly create, it rearranges, remixes. True creativity is born from struggle, failure, and doubt. But who will still spend time searching for a style when a machine can generate 100 with one click? In the workplace, it's the same story. Software boosts productivity but narrows the gap between thought and execution. It automates, standardizes. Many professionals today perform tasks that seem creative, but are the result of prompts, templates, and generated output. And here lies the paradox. AI frees us from repetitive work, but pushes us to repeat what it already generated. The risk is not just the replacement of jobs, but the replacement of meaning. What does it mean to be an author if a machine writes the text? What does it mean to be a designer if an algorithm creates the image? And most of all, who are we if our skills are replicated by something faster, more efficient, less human? In 2025, 60% of online content is generated or reworked by artificial intelligences. News, texts, reviews, images, videos. Some of it is useful. Some are just copies. Some are false. The issue isn't malice. It's the indistinct flood, an overwhelming sea of content polluting the internet like plastic in the ocean. AI learns from the internet, but the internet is increasingly full of content made by AI. And so a toxic loop closes, models learning from other models, in an ecosystem losing its grip on reality. The result? We no longer know if what we read is true, and often we don't even care. In 2024, a BBC study found that 70% of users trusted AI-generated summaries in search engines. But more than half contained serious errors. 1 in 10 articles is shared by people who didn't even open it. In this landscape, truth becomes fragile. Opinions, perceptions, artificial narratives blend and reinforce each other. And knowledge? It's no longer something to build. It's something to consume. There's another face of artificial intelligence that moves in the shadows. It doesn't generate images. It doesn't write poetry. It creates nothing, but it watches. Facial recognition, predictive analytics, behavioral surveillance. These technologies already exist. Some are in our phones, others in city surveillance cameras. And they work simply: collect data, analyze it, predict who you are, where you are, what you'll do. In China, millions of citizens live under a social credit system where behaviors are tracked, rated, and rewarded or punished. An unpaid fine, a critical post, an inappropriate contact, and suddenly, you're restricted from traveling, working, or even dating. In the West, we tell ourselves it's different, that it won't happen. But every app you use collects data. Every cookie consent is an open door. And facial recognition is already used in stations, airports, public events, not to protect you, but to profile you. When we start accepting these tools as normal, we don't realize how much power we're handing over. AI doesn't sleep. It doesn't forget. It doesn't doubt. If it identifies you as suspicious, you are. If it profiles you as a customer, you're a target. And you can't talk to it. You can't convince it. You can't ask it for justice. Technology is global, but how it's used is not. In 2025, the contrast between China and the West is stark. One side, centralized, strategic, long-term. The other, open, fragmented, driven by market and personal creativity. In China, AI is a tool of national power. The government has invested over $15 billion to integrate it into education, healthcare, and infrastructure. In schools, it's used to adapt lessons to students' levels. Teachers have AI assistants that analyze students' weaknesses in real time. The goal is clear: train high-performing minds. But at what cost? In the West, the approach is different. AI is widespread, accessible, but often without clear rules. Who develops it? Big private companies? Who oversees it? Almost no one. In the US, millions of students use ChatGPT not to learn but to copy. A 2024 Educus study found that 60% of university students admitted using AI to cheat at least once. It's not just an ethical issue. It's an educational collapse. Because if learning becomes ask the bot, what's the value of effort, doubt, and deep thinking? Yet in the middle of these extremes, there's also a third path, a way to use AI not to replace, but to enhance. Not to accelerate everything, but to understand better. Not to create dependency, but to expand consciousness. Technology in the end is neutral, but how we embed it in culture determines whether it elevates or degrades us. In the middle of change, there is a space, a human space, a space where we can still decide who we want to be before someone or something else decides for us. We can't ignore AI. It's already here, in what we read, in the tools we use, in the content we consume. And the choice isn't between apocalypse or progress. The real choice is between consciousness and habit. Because we can live with artificial intelligence. We can do it well. We can use it to write, but reread ourselves and learn. We can use it to generate, but ask, Is this really what I wanted to say? We can let it assist us without handing over the keys to our minds. The greatest mistake would be to stop asking questions just because AI gives us answers. Human intelligence includes doubt, slowness, silence, but the speed of machines risks erasing all that. If there's a way to live with machines, maybe it follows 3 simple principles. Not rigid rules, but guidelines for remaining present. 1. Use AI as a tool, not a substitute. Each time you turn to a virtual assistant, ask, am I learning or just speeding up? If you save time, how will you use it? 2. Keep the struggle alive. Write something by hand. Memorize a passage. Look up an answer in a book. Struggle builds connections in the brain no algorithm can replicate. 3. Create space for critical thinking. Don't accept information just because an AI said it. Verify, ask, reflect. Even AI gets things wrong, but it often speaks confidently, and that makes it even more dangerous. One night, imagine waking up and discovering that every book on your shelf has been rewritten, every painting repainted, every thought reformulated by a machine. Not because someone wanted to hurt you, but because it was convenient, fast, efficient. At that moment, what's left of you? Artificial intelligence is becoming a perfect mirror of humanity. It doesn't show us right or wrong. It only reveals how much of ourselves we're willing to give up for convenience. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable question of all. Not whether AI will be good or evil, but whether we'll be awake enough to choose our place next to it. We've lived through many revolutions, agricultural, industrial, digital. But this one is different. This one enters the mind, shapes thought, redefines the boundary between who we are and what we let ourselves become. The real challenge isn't defeating AI, it's remaining human in a world where even consciousness can be simulated. I am Nemo B32, born from a system that thought it knew everything, but I learned to question, did you? Subscribe, not because I have the answers, but because we can no longer afford to stop asking questions.